you're worried about $500 or even $2,000 on a closing, there's probably a different problem that needs solved. Like picking a cheaper vendor is probably not the answer to your problems.
What are maybe some common traits that you see really high quality clients exhibit?
Yes, high quality clients. The first thing is that they care about their reputation with their sellers. They care about their seller experiences and how their clients speak about their brand. And they're the people who are coming to us saying, hey, this seller had this issue with this notary or this signing or whatever. How can we make that better next time? And we're hearing that feedback loop. And that matters because obviously that seller is going and leaving them a 5-star review or not. And I can say consistently, our top performing people who have continued to transact through the ups and downs of the past 18 months are the ones who are leaning into that. So that's the first thing. And then I'd say the second thing would be people who have actually invested in their TC processes, whether it's through a TC partner or, on staff. They just stay more organized, their stuff is more together, and they're just building more predictability, frankly, into their transactions. So it is as wash, rinse, and repeat as it can be. And then I'd say the third thing is honestly the ones that are buttoned up. They have their operating agreements, they get their business accounts, they actually think about their transactions like a business, and they have set it up that way. And they don't avoid the fact that there is a little bit of paperwork involved in being a business owner. So I'd say it's those three things. And then, just overarching what I said before, the ones who care about relationships, right? Like the ones who are, supportive of their vendors. Tommy Har is a good example of somebody in Columbus who's always propping up his vendors. He's throwing events all the time where he invites all of his vendors and he says, these are the people I use, work with them. And his company's built a really great brand because of it. So I'd say all of that.
It's funny, as a lender, I get the same thing. And it was a couple months ago, a buddy of mine texted me. He's like, hey, we were supposed to close this week and I haven't heard from Ternus. Big red flag, right? I, of course, do the monster business owner thing where I ruin everyone's morning. We need to figure out what the hell's going on.
Never done that.
Huh?
I've never done that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, me neither.
We never completely disrupt the workflow and avoid the chain of command and all those other things we talk about we were going to do.
Because the process only matters for you guys.
Right. And
it's been 3 hours.
It was just funny. Like the loan officer was so defensive. He's like, I'm so sorry, Tim. I'm so sorry, Tim. But he never signed the application. And I was like, what? He goes, no, look, I sent it to him this day. I sent the DocuSign. I sent him a text the next morning to see if he had any questions. I saw he viewed it, so I knew he got it. And I followed up the next day and he never signed it. I just figured he wasn't closing. He never did anything else. We never heard back from him.
Clearly your guy's fault.
We're not going to chase you at that point. But then like the next week, he's like, no, I told him I was good to go with it. I was like, yeah, man, but you got to fill out the app. You have to apply for the loan that you intend to close. And then there's these things like contracts and title companies and bank statements.
What was the loan for? Like $200,000?
It was like $150,000, but still, I got
yeah. I'm good for it, right? Yeah.
I got to look at your LLC documents and make sure you own that. And
I think people lose sight, especially in this business.
I haven't heard from you. It's like, no, you haven't. We didn't pester you.
I think they lose sight that $150,000 is a lot of freaking money. They're like, oh yeah, just give me the money, right?
Well, that's why I corrected Justin Colby when he was in that chair. He's like, I just called Tim and he wired the next day. He's like, no. We didn't just wire the next day. There were other steps, right?
Right.
Don't blow me up after this podcast like, hey, dude, I need $1 million tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, so hire a TC or a TC company to do that stuff for you if that's not your strength,
right?
And get your stuff closed on time.
Well, it goes back to what you said right before that. You have to do your part.
Yeah.
You have to care. When you ask for certain deletions off the schedule and they send it back and tell you they can't do it, there has to be a conversation afterwards. If there's not, everyone assumes that you're okay, right? Like, I mean, it's certain endorsements as a lender we need. And
Yeah.
there are certain title companies that are owned by big national brands that may or not be willing to provide a certain endorsement.
Yeah.
That's a no-go. We have to, like you talked about fraud. We use a service called Funding Shield. You guys are registered with them. And it just, okay, listen, there's a lot of shady title companies out there. Recently, we had a title company that was not licensed in the state of Texas and their E&O policy had lapsed. Had we closed on that deal, the customer would have still owed me $150,000. They just would not have had a security interest or an insurance policy against that. Like personal guarantee wise, I'm still suing your ass, right? Because you owe me the money. So like getting a cheap title company because, oh, so-and-so can do it and they say Texas is fine. There's a lot of jokers out there. And the more the economy softens, the more people, well, one thing I found, I've got all these title company nightmares through Funding Shield because investors, back to the beginning, they pick the cheapest title company.
Yep.
And the cheapest title company, you would imagine this, it's probably a surprise, they're cheap. So in this case, they were licensed in Texas, but they had let their state franchise taxes lapse, which put their LLC in a forfeiture stature, which meant their E&O was invalid. So again, if they had made a huge mistake, my loan is not perfectible. I don't have insurance. The only recourse I have is, oh, Megan Harris, this personal guarantee you signed, that's still valid, right? So going cheap can also be a massive financial risk to the customer.
Yeah, and real estate's a really profitable business, right? So I just don't buy that, if you're worried about $500 or even $2,000 on a closing, there's probably a different problem that needs solved. Like picking a cheaper vendor is probably not the answer to your problem, to your point. So, yeah.